Jeremy and I attempting to go live. We'll see how this all works, but there is a lot to talk about the Pelicans, and I regret to inform everybody, not that they need any informing, it's not good. So tune in with us. Let's see what's going on.
The New Orleans Pelicans select Zion Williamson. And Holiday, the dribble penetration. So tough going to the goal. High above the rim to rip it down.
What is up, gentlemen? How was your Thanksgiving? Let's talk about the fun stuff.
I won some bets, so it was great.
Okay. Okay. Wait, what were you betting on?
The NFL, the National Football League, that terrible league. But I made some money, so I'm happy.
Fair enough. Mason?
Just got to take a break from work and enjoy some family time up here. I'm coming down to New Orleans for like around Christmas time, but we stayed up here in Michigan for the Thanksgiving holiday. But it was good.
Yeah, dude. All right. That's fucking sick. I think that it sounds way better than whatever's going on with the Pelicans.
How was your Thanksgiving? Wait, you can't duck that.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. My fault. I went to Dallas. Shout out Dallas. Shout out Z.
Okay, Z.
Okay, Z. Dallas was great. I had a great time. My extended family was there. Got to see a lot of my cousins. Played a lot of Catan, which my family is psychos about the game of Catan. If you are watching and you're a Catan player, let's play. We'll have some fun.
Leave a comment. Let them know where you can meet Schmidt up at.
Yeah, for sure. So I had a good time. Dallas always has some phenomenal food. I think they have a ton of food choices that I really enjoy, particularly Indian food. Just not something that I can get a lot of in New Orleans outside of my mom's house. Shout out, mom. But yeah, I had a great time in Dallas. I watched the Pelicans get their butt kicked repeatedly. And
you had to be in Dallas for that? That seemed like a recurring theme as of late.
Oh gosh, yeah. The Raptors game, the Memphis game, and now the Knicks game, all of which have been different levels of awful. We could talk about the Raptors game. We could just talk about the totality of things, but there's also a ton going on behind the scenes with the Pelicans. And a lot of it has to do with their two best players. When we last left off, we talked about Zion and everything surrounding him and him leaving CAA. We talked about how he's potentially going with Bill Duffy. And today, the great Mark Stein pretty much confirmed that is the expectation around the league, that Zion's going with Bill Duffy. Now, Brandon has also left his agency. We didn't get a chance to talk about that. So I'm going to pitch it to you guys. Let's talk about Brandon Ingram and everything that's gone on there first.
I don't know what else we got to talk about. I read the whole thing yesterday.
Yeah, I'm a subscriber to In The N.O, so I got a heads up about what was happening with the Brandon Ingram situation.
Okay.
I will say this. February, when these DeJounte trade rumors started to percolate, my immediate reaction was, you have to trade Brandon Ingram. That was in February. We're now in December. Guess what? You have to trade Brandon Ingram. And I'm going to ask Schmidt, with him getting new agency, what do you believe Rich Paul and his associates will attempt to do with this Brandon situation?
Yeah, no, that's a great question.
I'm sorry, while having a client who is a top player on this roster.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, sweet. We got comments rolling in. So for whoever's tuning in, we've never done this live before. It's something that we are experimenting with. Hopefully, if it works out well, we can do it with a greater frequency. So we already have a comment coming in from F Funky. Really appreciate it. Says, can't wait for it to get messy. And I agree. I think that's exactly what's about to happen. So let's talk about it with the whole Brandon Ingram stuff. Look, he left his agent with Excel. The whole thing with Excel, in my opinion, in my reading of the situation, was that Brandon has certain contract demands. And over the summer, it was reported that the Pelicans were obviously not willing to meet those level of demands, and they had encouraged Brandon and his agency to go find a team that would meet those demands. And I think what Excel did was they found a team, and that team was the Utah Jazz. I think that they found that team, and the Pelicans and Utah talked. I think if you guys read the Substack, Utah was a team that I mentioned very frequently, throwing around different permutations with John Collins and Walker Kessler and maybe Colin Sexton, all that kind of stuff. Because the word out of Utah the whole time was they don't want to trade Lauri Markkanen. They will only do it if Golden State or whoever else just offers an obscene offer. But they didn't want to trade him because the owner over in Utah just had no real interest in moving Lauri. And I think Danny Ainge wanted to be in the Cooper Flag sweepstakes, and the owner was like, that's cool. I don't want to move Lauri. Lauri actually wants to be here. And as we're finding out, not very many people want to be in Salt Lake City. And so I think that was a big selling point for that owner. And I think what Danny Ainge...
Not to interrupt, that sounds vaguely familiar to this situation. Guy doesn't want to leave. He loves it here. We have to just keep him here and keep him happy and do whatever you need to do to keep him in insert small market here.
And I do think, that is a unique challenge small markets face. Like, if you have a player willing to be in your market at some level, like, you have to retain good players. Like, I mean, that's just something you got to do. You can't perpetually tank. And part of the allure of tanking is you get the player on a rookie scale contract that gives you upwards of 8 to 9 years of control on said player. It's all about keeping the player in your market. So in Utah, obviously they didn't trade Lauri. The ridiculous demands weren't met, and they are still in the Cooper Flag sweepstakes. So things are going very well according to plan over there. But over the summer, while these discussions were happening with the Pelicans and Utah and Excel, it was my understanding that Ingram and people close to him were just like, we're good on SLC. That's just not where we want to be. And Jeremy, I think you wanted to say something here.
Every NBA player as of late has taken the money and then decided where they want to play the rest of their career. And I don't understand why Brandon doesn't understand that's the way that you do business now in today's NBA. He's just, I always say athletes are, I'm going to use a different word, irrationally confident. That's what I'll say now. But you had to understand the landscape. If someone was willing to meet your financial demands, take the money. Take the money.
So that's where my question comes in, because is it, I mean, was it surely so much money that he would say, I'll take Utah, or was it just an offer that was better than anything else he was seeing? I mean, like, what's the order of magnitude there? Because maybe if it's more money, but not like the most money he thinks he can get, then maybe that's reason to say, I don't like you. I agree with you, Jay. Like, it's not rational. He should have taken the money, but I can understand the thought process depending on like how much more he was being offered, or how he thought he could get in Utah, I guess.
To my understanding, Utah was well aware they had to offer him the bank to retain him. Like, and that was something they were comfortable doing just because it would pair someone that's roughly the same age group as Lauri, is a good fit with Lauri, increases their talent level for a pretty modest acquisition price. Collins and Kessler, and a bad pick or so, or I don't know the exact package, so that's more speculation on my part. But the package wasn't going to be something overwhelming. It wasn't going to be the Mikal Bridges thing. Collins was going to be the main salary piece, and I think the other pieces would have been up and down depending on the negotiations. But there was an understanding in Utah, like, to get this done, he needs, it's kind of like the Pascal situation in Indiana, like it was the max, right? I don't know if the word max was uttered, but like it was going to be right there, right at that asking point.
In the summer, we discussed like, hey, you may not get the 30% max, but if you can find someone that's going to give you, and I have no clue, I'm not Scoop Schmidt like him, but if you find someone who give you like an extension on your max and give you 25% raise that the 8% raises on what you have. I can't stress it enough. Take the money. Take the money.
Right. So they chose not to take the money. And I think I'm with you, Jay. I think that's a mistake. I think $200 million is life changing money. However, Ingram may have believed that he could get comparable money or, might be a slight pay cut. And it could be a frame of reference depending on what the Pelicans already put on the table, right? Remember, the Pelicans offered the 3-year extension the prior year, and I do believe that was at that max dollar amount, right? And so maybe he still at that stage had a level of optimism. No, the Pelicans are going to come up on their offer. Maybe they would approach that 45 million or above range. That would be satisfactory, and it would mean that he wouldn't have to live in Salt Lake City. He would be in a place that he's comfortable in already, right? Or maybe he believes that there is another team out there, a team that is better positioned to win and is in a better market that will also give him enough money. Or maybe he just thinks, dude, like, even if I get 160 million, I'd rather take that than be in Utah, right? I don't know what the specifics were on there. I do know that there hasn't been another team willing to meet what Utah was willing to pay. And I think that's important. I think Windhorst on his ESPN Insider article like said something similar to the effect. I don't remember the exact words he used, but it was something like finding a team that Ingram is wanting to re-sign with. Essentially was like the words that Windhorst used. And I think, yeah, Mason, you're gonna say something?
I've got like 3 questions that all kind of tie together for you, or for both of you, really. And one is, would the offer be on the table now that it was off, or like, would there be interest, do you think, on Utah's side to do it now? This the same type framework of the deal that was discussed before. And 2, if Clutch came to be out, like, look, you should take this. Like, how do you? I don't remember what the third question was, but that was kind of the frame of my thought process was like, do you think there's something that could still be done with Utah if Clutch comes to be and says, look, this is the best you're going to get?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think I'd be doubtful that the Utah deal could resurface. I think part of it is they are now fully invested in the Cooper Flag sweepstakes, and this might jeopardize it a little too much. I think maybe if you get to February and they're just like way out of any kind of winning picture, that's something they entertain. But just know that that's going to be a deal that's going to be significantly worse than the one that was available to the Pelicans this summer. Like, because again, you might get that wink, wink. Yeah, we're going to re-sign you thing, but Brandon still has the opportunity after 2 months in Salt Lake City to be like, yeah, this is exactly what I thought it was going to be, and I don't want to be here. That's a very real possibility. And so the price would be way worse. I just don't even know if that's something the Pelicans would be willing to go down at this moment. I do think what I'm optimistic about, and I do think there are some people. I'm going to be careful with my wording here, but because I don't want to imply that there are people on the Pelicans that want Brandon gone, but I do think there are some people on the Pelicans who think that the Clutch situation might make a resolution to this situation arrive sooner rather than later, and that's something they welcome. And the resolution could be, like you said, it could be the form of an extension with BI here in New Orleans. It could be any number of things. I think there people are excited for this not be lingering over their head any longer than it needs to be, which right now it seems like with how badly the Pelicans are losing, this is just another thing to add to their plate. Did you figure out that third question?
No, I have a hunch that addressed it. I can't remember what it was, but yeah, okay. I think the notion that the offer, basically the return for Brandon Ingram from Utah, would be less than what it was before, which already wasn't great, right? Relative to whatever you might have initially thought. Yeah, tough. But so I guess the question becomes, to your point, like, if it's not an extension in New Orleans when you get closer to February, does if Clutch can kind of let BI know what his market is, and those demands from BI start coming down, does the scale start to tip where the offers get a little bit better? Because you don't also have to think of it, because it's always two parts, right? You said this a million times, like it's the investment in BI and the investment in the trade package to get BI. And so as one goes down, could the other one come up? I think that's what I'm most interested in.
Man,
Okay,
I
so
think, yeah.
go
So
ahead. No,
no. I want to hear what you guys say.
well, after you finish, I want to ask, do you guys have any teams you can think of that are not Utah that may fit the bill, who may have surprisingly won more games than people expected and may bring on Brandon to be that piece that gets them into postseason play?
Yeah. So, just to kind of like touch on both of your things, I think with how this season's playing out, the disparity in the West versus the East, I think at least the Pelicans are hopeful that's going to create some optionality that wasn't available before. And that may be in the form of present West teams that are disappointed with how they have performed thus far and want to bolster their roster because they are in the play-in and they expected not to be in the play-in. Or it could be Eastern Conference teams, as Jay said, that are finding themselves in the 10 seed, and that's not where they expected to be. Both and from a positive standpoint, not from a, oh no, we're in the 10 seed, this is a dreadful place to be. It's a, oh, we're in the 10 seed, what can we do here, which is crazy. Again, we talk about this every podcast, it's crazy. So I think because of that, there's at least a hope that with Clutch coming into play, there's maybe an accelerated process where you do reach a resolution before February. The December 15th trade eligibility deadline's coming up, which is the deadline for the recently signed players. It's when they players who were signed this summer in free agency tend to become available for trade, and that unlocks a lot of the trade market. Not that there's many trades that happen on December 15th. Historically, it's been like one every other year or so, but it is a date that the league looks at. So I think in the East, I'm looking at Charlotte, I'm looking at Detroit. Charlotte has shown interest in Brandon in the past. Obviously, there's a different operation there, a different GM, different coach. However, I'm looking at Charlotte. It's Brandon's home state. I think that's a place he'll be comfortable playing in. I think he obviously has a great relationship with the Ball family and LaMelo Ball. Brandon Miller's been incredible this season. Yet the Hornets are not. They're still chasing the postseason appearance. They're not in the driver's seat at all, and they hold the longest playoff drought in the NBA. This was a trivia question I got right at trivia a couple weeks ago. We got third. We got $25.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Shout out Second Line Brewing. Appreciate y'all. That was a great trivia night. But yeah.
Hey, there's nowhere you could send. Well, I guess there's other places you could send BI, but sending BI to Charlotte to watch LaMelo Ball and Brandon Miller jack up 12 to 15 threes a game. No better way to get BI shooting threes than watch those guys let it fly.
I think he would love playing with LaMelo. I think
I do too.
It's one of those things where BI, I think, it should go off on a little bit of a tangent here because I empathize with Brandon. I think that Brandon, if I'm looking at this season, this is a lost cause. This is I can't save what's going on with the Pelicans. That's not something I can do. It's not something I want to do because what's going to happen is if I attempt to do it, people are going to point the finger at me. That's what's going to happen. So what I'm going to do, and this is to touch on Cole's question here over here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take my time coming back from any nagging injury that's possible. And I'm not saying Brandon's inventing injuries. I'm not saying that they are telling him to sit, but I do think he is going to take all the time he needs to be 110% before he touches the floor, because there's no reason to come back at 95%. What are you going to do? Go from a 4-win team to a 5-win team? Go from 15th to 15th in the West? There's nothing there. There's no money to be made either, right? Like at this point, like you're more likely to hurt your value in free agency in terms of your contract than you are to increase it. So just take your time. Yeah, sorry. Going bringing it back. I don't think Griff and Clutch are telling BI to sit. I just think that is the very natural way for things to play out. That's just the most optimal way
Yeah.
to do it. For the Pelicans too, to be honest. You don't want him getting hurt before you got to trade.
You're 4-17. I mean, Brandon Ingram was part of the team that got its fourth win, and they haven't got their fourth win since. They haven't got a fifth win. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
like,
So
why now? If he has anything lingering, why?
sorry, did I lose you?
Yeah. Every time he's got something. He's got
Yeah,
every
it's
time it
falling
cuts
apart.
off, it's like the point where he's gonna drop some knowledge.
We got him. We got him back.
I'm here. I'm good. I'm good. Mic
Yeah, you're
check.
good. You're
All
good.
right.
You're
I
good.
was just saying, Bi was here when they won their fourth, and I think I'm cutting off again. Bi was here when they had their fourth win. I was the optimist. I was saying they had to go this on a certain pace. The Raptors game broke me, and I probably broke a lot of other people too. And you start to look at the writing on the wall, like, man, Ace Bailey is a really good shot maker. You know what I'm saying? You start thinking about things. Hey, let's develop Nisi. Let's try to get Trey a 26 usage rate. Let's find things. This see where the breaking point is for everyone, and lose a lot of games on the way.
Right. So I'm totally with you, and I want to talk about how the players should approach the season and whatnot. But to finish, I think I didn't finish the point about the East and potential trade partners. So Charlotte, I thought would be one of them. Now, what would come back from Charlotte is a little bit difficult. They got a weird salary with Grant Williams and Josh Green. He who must not be named. I would not advocate that one in any capacity. They have intriguing young players that maybe they could put in a deal. Mark Williams has been hurt, although like I don't want him getting in the way of Messi, but I wouldn't mind him as Messi's backup. They have picks. I don't know if they would be willing to part with them. That one's a little weird, but I'm saying I think that's a destination that makes sense for Ingram and it makes sense for Charlotte. I don't know if it makes sense for the Pelicans. Detroit. We've talked about Detroit. Our friend Trajan Langdon. Trajan Langdon is in Detroit. They find themselves. I think last I checked, they were the 10 seed, but maybe they're flirting with the 10/11 spot. Cade has been Cade Cunningham. I think Detroit clearly is lacking a number two style player, or a number one style. However you want to frame that. That's not up to me. I'll leave it up to uh, I'll leave it up to the specialists who can discuss that stuff. But however you want to frame that, I think if they added Brandon, they could definitely make a pursuit for the postseason, at least in the play-in form. And I think that's something their ownership will be quite satisfied with after the disaster that was last season. And I think that that's another team I'm watching to be a CJ destination as well. Trajan Langdon, just the familiarity with these two players plays a role. Both these players, I think, kind of fit in terms of what they're trying to do. CJ more along the lines of not accelerating their timeline too much. It's on the same like Tobias Harris style contract where it's 2 years, you're expiring next year. I got your veteran leadership. I got that shooting. I'm looking at that, but in the West, that one's tougher. Obviously, when you hear clutch, you hear the Lakers. The Lakers. Is Brandon gonna go to the Lakers? And I'm gonna ask you guys. So the Lakers are able to trade their 2029 pick and their 2031 pick. Those are picks they're eligible to trade. The Pelicans are not going to be able to get both those picks. They might not even be able to get one of those picks entirely. So I'm going to put a hypothetical out there, and this is a hypothetical that has not been discussed. It's not a real thing. This is only for you guys. If LA was to offer Rui Hachimura, D'Angelo Russell, who's an expiring, and the top 5 protected 2029 pick. Are you taking that deal?
Send it in. Like, send it in yesterday. Like, if you get a draft pick out this deal and an expiring, because my thought process with Detroit is something similar, send it in. I'll deal with the Rui contract later, but yeah, send that in immediately.
I guess. I don't know. I just have an aversion to like major market draft picks, like the floor, the Lakers floor. I know it was bad for a while, so I'm kind of talking on both sides of my mouth, like in the before LeBron got there, or before AD got there, but. Man.
Hey, LeBron delivered us the 8th pick.
Hey,
He
are we
delivered the
just
Pelicans the
trading?
8th pick that turned into Dyson Daniels. Shout out LeBron James.
Yeah, that's like that. I mean, that's the only hang up one for me. Like if you're talking about a top 5 protected pick from like a non New York, San Francisco, LA team, non glamour market, I'm more like I'd probably do it still. But because you like the reality is like that trade that pick probably gets flipped again before it ever materializes. So in that respect.
Hey, are the Pelicans trading with the Lakers? Fuck it, we'll be done with this bullshit, this LeBron bullshit sooner or later, and we just keep trading with them.
I'm so
keeps betting against LeBron and keeps losing.
I'm so exhausted of rooting against the Lakers for additional reasons than normal, like for the drastic reasons. Like I like the fact that we don't have a pick anymore from the Lakers. It's freeing. You're trying to impose another one back on me.
But at the same time, don't you want to see if the house keeps hitting on? If you keep hitting on 60 and then losing, what's just the excitement of betting on a 44-year-old LeBron finally giving up?
Oh my God! It would be like it'd go full circle where like Zion just ends up there too, and it's like somehow he's able to play, and then 2029 you're just like, okay, Zion and Brandon Ingram, they're off to a 8-12 start. Is this the year we get the pick? And then it's like Zion and Brandon Ingram finally figure it out.
They'll figure out they go 18-2 and be the new co-mayors of the city.
Okay, yeah. We won't delve too much into that future, but other West teams that are kind of in a funk slash, maybe I could see calling. The Minnesota Timberwolves are in a very bad place right now. If you pay attention to any of the stuff that's coming out of their post games, it's been bad. I just don't know they have a ton of like malleable salary that they can cobble up together, especially with their apron concerns and the fact that they tried to get out of paying Karl Anthony Towns. So why would you want to hitch your wagon to Brandon Ingram for long term?
I guess here's my question: neither one can take the higher amount of salary, right? Because of the April situation. So aren't we immediately asking for a third team to bump? Don't curse us without it. Hey man, the 48 and y'all, we've seen it the 51, man. I've been loving it. Y'all got us going good today, man.
Oh man. Yeah. So yeah, it's the Wolves are in a bad spot. I don't know if they would be able to, obviously like they traded some future picks to go get Dillingham in the draft. So their draft capital is up in the air too. That one's a weird one. Bring Nas home. I would be in support of this one if they managed to do that. I just struggle to figure out how they would do that. The Kings were interested in Brandon this summer. They ended up going with DeRozan. Maybe they're interested in creating a basketball singularity. When the black hole just collapses upon each other, it's going to happen 22 feet away from the basket, and the ball will never escape. Maybe that is what Vivek is interested in Monty McNair.
They're taking the term restricted area literally.
If Vivek decides to go from we need Buddy Hield because he's a 3-point shooter to give me every non-Durant mid-range shooter in the NBA and we'll make it work.
Kawhi's gonna be healthy eventually. Give me him too.
So what's interesting about the Kings is that the Kings are a team to kind of watch for that December 15th because that's Malik Monk eligibility. Keegan's been underperforming. No, Pelicans fans, I'm not going to get your hopes up about potentially landing Keegan Murray. I just want to talk to the salaries that might be available in the Kings now that they've made trades. Obviously, they have the Lyles contract as well, and Kevin Huerter is still there. So they do kind of have the ability to mix and match things. But because DeMar DeRozan was a sign and trade, they are hard capped at that first apron. And so that's something that they have to actively keep in mind before constructing any kind of deal. Could you guys see Chicago as someone that's interested? Could there be a clutch client for a clutch client swap? Now there's 2 clutch clients in Chicago, and I'll let you figure out which ones I might be referring to.
Is Vooch a clutch client?
No.
I know one. And Buddy.
You know the other one too.
Oh no! Oh hell!
watching Jeremy come to that realization.
Oh man! Bring him home!
So for listeners, if Jeremy was at the 2 clutch clients in Chicago are Zach LaVine and Lonzo Ball. Lonzo will make Zion great again. Bring back all the stands. Bring them. Trade one stand base for the other.
Stands for stands. Bring them home. Bring that expiring home, baby.
Oh man, I think so. Chicago is interesting because they do have weird salaries that they can play around with. I think they, the Vooch and Lonzo adds up to the Brandon Ingram, maybe slightly above, right? Adds up to a matching number. And Lonzo's an expiring, of course. Vooch is got a 1 more year left on his deal, so having quite a good year, right? I don't know that Chicago would want to go from DeRozan to Brandon to pair next to LaVine, especially LaVine still has a standing trade request. He still has a, that wasn't retracted to my knowledge, so that would be interesting. But speaking of LaVine, would you guys be interested in taking on LaVine either directly while dealing with Chicago or through some kind of 3-team mechanism? Say, you send Brandon to the Clippers, who I think he would be a good fit on the Clippers. You say send Brandon to the Heat. You send, any of these teams that are actually been kind of decent, but they're like, okay, we need something else because we have a little higher hopes of being decent. Would you take on LaVine in kind of even the Lakers send D'Angelo Russell in whatever to Chicago and take back LaVine?
Putting LaVine and CJ on the same team, it would be the version of what the Wolves did with Towns and Gobert together. Like that's like $80 million of salary in this in the same position. Man, but that's not the point though. It's not to win.
I think CJ would be on the way out. So let's just presume
sure.
is if you're taking on LaVine, CJ's just gone. In some capacity.
Hey, let's deal with the good news first. Zion or finally that'd be the closest thing he get the spacing that he's ever had. If you have DeJounte, Zach, Trey, and Messi, that's a lot of floor spacing and vertical spacing that Zion's never had. Here's the bad news. How many knees does Zach LaVine still have available? How many? I'm scared he's gonna jump and he's gonna realize he plays for the Pelicans. He's gonna.
Dude, Justin Timberlake got hurt in the Smoothie King Center.
Exactly. Do we really want this?
Oh man. So here's the thing with LaVine is he prior to last year in that trade request and the knee stuff, he played 77 games the year before that. He played 67 games the year before that. He played 58 games in that COVID shortened year the year before that. So
may I interject?
And somehow he's not 30 yet, which is kind of mind blowing.
May I interject? DeJounte Murray played 78 years the year before this. And he played 77 years the year before that. And guess what happened between the offseason and then his first game? Games played doesn't even matter for us. B.I. played 79 games a season. And then he came to the Pelicans. And he was with Pelicans trade rumors. And he had heart issues. We know. Kane's play doesn't work for us anymore.
I'm with you. That's not a reliable measure. However, just to kind of fill folks in, LaVine is averaging 22, 4.5 and 4 this year. He's 50%, almost 51% from the field, 42.9% from three, and then 82% from the free throw lines. Almost having a 50, 40, 90 season. Just been his usual efficient self, 63.8% true shooting. Again, outside of last year's weird issues, the previous years he was 61%, 60.5%, 63.4% the previous 3 years from that. So he's been an efficient NBA player when he's on the court. Dude, I could talk myself into Zach LaVine with the shooting, get the clutch client backcourt, get the Herb and Trey. When Zion misses time, you'll be able to balance it more because of LaVine and DeJounte. Presumably, you have Herb and Trey. Maybe the move with Brandon is to buy instead of sell. And I don't know. I don't want to say that they would spend a ton of assets to get LaVine here, but maybe there's no sellers out there, and it's a sell buy. You sell it to one team and use that to go buy something else.
All right. One of my other teams are the Cubs. I'm wearing Grambling because I went there, and they were the least disappointing team that I have invested interest in this weekend. But I also root for the Cubs, and they made a trade mid-season. The third baseman that they just couldn't get to work, and they traded him for a former All-Star third baseman who was playing well to start the season, and then he became a Cub, and he batted like 210 from the trade deadline on. So that's the type of trade you're talking about. I can't speculate on how well LaVine would go, but it's more of a, hey, you take out expiring, we'll take on a player who has the contract and can fit and would help play the style we want to play. But again, the downside is if he gets injured again, it may become a crippling contract fast.
Yeah. I'm the downsides, that is a very real reality the Pelicans live with any player. And as you mentioned, even the healthiest players, unless you're Jonas Valanciunas, and then you're a tank, and then you never miss games. Shout out to JV. Let's change tracks here because I think a lot of people want to discuss the state of the actual Pelicans. Like, let's talk about the degree of changes because, obviously the Brandon stuff is one step in many that probably need to occur to kind of, I don't want to say right the ship because I don't know if that'll all right the ship. I can't pretend that is something, if they make all these changes, they're going to get back on track, but maybe to at least act like they care. Right? The bar is low here. The bar is low here. So I think a lot of fans in the chat have been kind of like asking about Willie, have they been asking about Griff, and I'm trying to pull out the relevant comments here that are hiding. But in the meantime, let me put it to you guys while I dig these comments out. Where do you guys stand on change coming from the top level, or at the top level, not coming from at the top level?
Go ahead, Mace.
All right. Well, no one should be safe. I think that should go without saying, hopefully, at this point. The community, the Pelicans from the top down, they've given it their shot, and if they tear it down, then everyone is at risk. And I think we about a month ago, I think we joked a little bit regarding the notion of Gale and the ownership firing two head coaches with time on the contract left during this season. And so I can't help but wonder if the fact that the Pelicans fired Dennis Allen and took too long to fire Dennis Allen with most people from the position of most people, what bearing does that have on Willie Green, both just kind of like about patience as well as financial ramifications? Because I think Willie and Dennis both had contracts that extended through next season and not beyond. So that's money. So you are potentially paying as Gail Benson, you're potentially paying 4 coaches next year. And so that is an interesting wrinkle, I think, to me on the coaching front. But I think broadly speaking, again, no one should be beyond reproach here.
Yeah, I could take it one step further, and I wouldn't. If Gail was to go, what we did for the previous before the Bensons got it, and say, "Hey, David Griffin, you come coach these dudes," like they did with Brian Scott and Jeff Bauer. Like
Jeff Bauer.
yes, like nothing is off the table. Again, Willie has won more games than he's had with Zion playing under his regime, and it's sad, but the same token, like you can't lose like this. It's not that they're losing; it's how they're losing now. Like Willie said after the Toronto ass kicking that they didn't compete, and I agree with them. And then another game later, well, a game afterwards, you got your ass kicked again. Like I'm not saying he's without fault, without blame, but he's also without fault. Like no one should be sacred. I don't want to sit here saying, for a person to lose their job, but the business is the business, and 4-17 is bleak. No one has hope. No one has any thoughts that you can be the man to fix the job. I got friends texting me like Willie's main job.
Oh no, we lost him again. As Mason said, every time there's a bomb to be dropped, we just lose dub.
I don't know if I'm back or not.
No, you're back.
Hey Willie, love you, man. I appreciate it. Everyone.
So let me touch on that. So I have this comment highlighted up here, but Cole said after the Raptors game and tonight, Willie has to be on the hot seat. And I think there's an element of truth to this in the sense that I don't think there's like any like game to game outcomes that are, like make the front office or ownership go like, okay, this is where we need to change. But I think if you look at the overall picture, there are a couple of things happening. One, it is abundantly evident that Willie does not have control over Brandon Ingram or Zion Williamson. Those are two players he has failed to reach in a way that is necessary for a head coach to reach, right? You've got to be able to reach stars. Zion has gotten a lot better at things in terms of not skipping out on stuff, taking his rehab seriously and all of that. It's still, those things are still occurring today. They're better. They're not eliminated. It's on Willie to nip that stuff in the bud. With Brandon, he has been unable to challenge him to be a more efficient player. This is the year that Brandon was finally taking a little more threes, but it came entirely at the expense of trying to get to the rim. There was virtually no change in the amount of mid-range shots and outside of the restricted area shots that he's taken. And that, is a big reflection of Willie, but also Brandon has, I don't want to use the term quiet quit, but I do feel like some of that's going on right now. We talked about that in the pod, but there was that whole extended missing 2 months with that toe situation that the organization was upset about, that his teammates were upset about and stuff. And again, those are areas where I think Willie has been, maybe like him being nice with the players has come back to bite him. And those are some situations where players don't need a player friendly coach or a friend even. They need more of a disciplinarian. And I'm not sure that's something that Willie's been comfortable enough to wield. And he's not done that in a consistent manner. He's held guys like Trey accountable and JV accountable, but it doesn't apply to guys that, we all deem Willie guys, right? Like we know what the archetype is. And so there's a pattern of decision making that also comes to Willie when it comes to rotations and who he decides to play, that you can just point at and be like, look, like this is a culmination of years and years and years of stuff. And now finally it's playing out in the games in a way where it's abundantly clear that the team is checked out. I just don't think that they're responding to him in any capacity. And someone here, I'm gonna show this comment right here from Sonny. He's like, if Willie was fired, the players buy into Borrego enough at this point. I don't know. But the thing about firing Willie mid-season is you get the 3 to 4 months to look at Borrego for free without any kind of obligation, right? I mean, it's not for free, obviously. Like the interims get a little pay bump and whatever. But what I mean is, you're not locked in to, oh, if I want to get a look at Borrego, I got to give him a 3-year deal. You're not locked in to that. That is, I don't think that they're going to fire Willie midseason. Although at this point, I feel like anything is on the table. I really do think anything is on the table. Things are that bad. I think it's possible that Griff can go. I think things are that bad. I would bet Willie is more likely to go than Griff at this current stage, because I think Griff will be able to point to the injuries more than Willie will, because I think Griff can always say, like, Willie just lost the locker. And Griff can say, like, I've drafted well, Misi's producing. We built a good roster. We've had the increase in wins year over year. This is a gap year. We'll get their draft pick. We'll get it right. We just need a new coach that the guys respond to. With regards to Borrego, I don't know if they're going to respond to him. It's worth the 3-4 month look. If I had unlimited money, I was cutting the checks, I would do that. And then you could regroup in the summer and decide, okay, was Borrego the direction you really want to go in? Or are you going to do a full-fledged coaching search? Can you start looking at some of these other guys on other teams? Can you look at Mike and Nori? Can you look at guys in college? Can you look at other places? But I think Willie's the first to go. I think it probably comes in conjunction with some sort of major trades. If you look at things that need to happen this season to sort of, nothing's going to erase the stench off it, but it'll at least put the spotlight or attention on something else. I think the Brandon stuff needs to get resolved. I think eventually they'll need to tackle the CJ contract, because that's just, you're looking at the dollars, you're looking at your future there. There's something they're going to need to tackle. They're eventually going to need to tackle the Zion stuff. That one they have the most time to do, so there's no like real urgency on that. But prior to that is the Willie thing, and that's where I'm at with it, if that makes any sense.
I mean, I think to reinforce what both of you guys have said, it's not just the losses, it's how they're losing. Because I think early in the Willie Green era, and this is like, I feel like it's early with Monty Williams, we said the same shit. It's like, wow, these guys are competing, they're losing, but they're not getting blown out. They're fighting, they're going down, swinging, and they're losing close games. I think Schmidt, you even said I think was the Pacers game. There's a game recently where like it felt like a good loss, right? Those have been few and far between for the Pelicans this year. And so like I posted on Blue Sky like right before we started that this team has lost 9 games now by at least 18 points. Like that's terrible. Like that is not. Like injuries are a factor, obviously. They've crippled the team's season more than anything else. But to lose that many games to that degree, and sometimes not to good teams either. I mean, like Toronto, like that's
Atlanta, Portland. Like these aren't good teams that they're getting their behinds kicked in, man.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Look, I think you.
Oh, hold on. I did want to address something. I want to address something. The comment about Willie not showing frustration at press conferences. One, he's not a cusser, so I mean, all the fucks are coming from us. They're not coming from him.
You're freaking right about that.
Secondly, look at that man's face. I don't know how many of y'all, are still going to church or religious. When a man keeps on bringing up he's praying, that's a lot of frustration, because the only person he can talk to is God. I'm letting you know right now. He is saying he's frustrated because I can't talk to nobody else. I can't tell my wife how mad I am. I can't tell these dudes how mad I am. I can't tell my friends how I'm mad. I can only talk to the Most High, my possibly imaginary father above, because that's the only person who understands what I'm going through. So look at his face. Listen to what he's saying. The dude frustrated. He's just not. The cussing, the fire and brimstone.
I think we lost Jeremy again. Oh no, we lost him at a good moment though. You're talking about the cussing and the fire and the brimstone, but I think We got the gist of it, man. I want to shout out Mike. Mike, thanks for hopping in the chat. And I think you're right. As an objective observer, if you were to make a tally of what Griff has done, and you put all the wins on in one column, and you put all the areas where he could have done better in another column, I think there would be an imbalance. And I think you can make a very, very objective case that he's not done enough on the margins. He's not been a proactive mover and changer of this team.
You were such a consultant there, man. You said you put the wins in one column and not the losses, the things he could have done better in the other column. I'm calling you out.
Hey, man, my day job is coming through.
The areas of improvement, the wins and the areas of improvement.
Honestly, that's kind of how I talk to the players I coach, because I don't want to say like you got to be delicate with how you say things, and I don't want to ever like tell the players I coach like you suck at this, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Mike says real McKinsey vibes. Hey, man. Hey. Anyways, but if you evaluate David Griffin's career and you stack it up against all the other executives, I think the common theme in his era has been he has always tried to correct mistakes retroactively. And I don't think he's been proactive enough in terms of seeking out talent or moving off of things that need to move before it's like way past time, right? I think it's like kind of like where Willie Green was at with Garrett Temple. It's like, dude, it's way past time. Stop playing Temple when Trey's right there. I think Griff's been the executive version of that, right? It's time to move on from some of these things. Where I think Griff, this is just my opinion. And Griff, if you listen to this, I mean it in the best way. I think Griff wants to be liked by people. That includes the people he works with. He wants to be liked by the coaches. He wants to be liked by other executives. He wants to be liked by the players. And I think some of that compromises his ability to make difficult decisions, because by definition, when you make a difficult decision, you are the bad guy. We saw what happened when he had a second round pick available for JJ Redick. And instead of letting him get bought out, he's like, I'm going to take that second round pick. We saw where JJ took that. And I think that kind of stuff, like, they don't enjoy, right?
I'll go one step further. When they announced that they fired Stan Van Gundy, he went out of his way to talk about how great of a coach he was. And not even in we got to do this because of business. No, he wanted to be known that I ain't want to do this. I just got overruled by people. I don't want anyone to dislike me. I'm not the bad guy here. I want to, like you say, make it seem like I'm not the bad guy here.
Yeah, 110%. And I think that has come into play with regards to his relationships with Zion and Brandon Ingram, and just not being able to hold them to a standard that they need to be held to, but also like propping up Ingram to be this kind of franchise guy, just because I think I do think he believed in Ingram. I don't think there's a moment where Griff didn't believe Ingram could be that guy. I think there was genuine belief there. I do think Griff is a big power of belief guy, and I think he likes to speak things into existence. That's something that I think that's just how he operates. And I think, again, that sometimes clouds objectivity or delays things that need to be done. And I think there is a level of Griff that needs to be ruthless the way he was in Cleveland, but he hasn't had that kind of pressure in New Orleans. Part of it is because he is doing what ownership is asking him to do. He has increased the win totals on the team. He is getting them to the postseason in some form of fashion. The play-in counts. He has ducked the tax and gotten them that reimbursement check every single year. And so those are things where ownership is like, he's doing his job,
Yeah, that's why I'm with you and thinking I think David Griffin, escapes this with ease, especially because he can just, like you said, put on the injuries, put it on, they tune Willie out. And like you say, look at my draft record. Don't look at my trades, just look at my draft record. But do look at the trade that I did with JV and got us that 8th overall pick.
The AD trade was good. The Drew trade was good. The sell trades have been good.
The sell trades have been good. I got another one in me. Just believe in me, and I think he'll still get another chance, even though if Willie leaves, it'll be his 4th head coach, and I don't know how many execs get 4.
That is kind of the problem, though, right? Like it feels like the sell trades were really good, but like beyond that, like that's the extent of the really good stuff, like that. And that again,
I will say
the draft. So there's some draft wins there. There's some draft.
I will also say the CJ trade was a win. The extension is looking not as good, and I would say the CJ trade was a win. It got them what they wanted, what they needed at the time. It was either for a part of a pick, or it was the Milwaukee pick that wound up happening and still got protections on it. I will give Griff a win on that trade, on that buy trade.
I still support the logic of the DeJounte trade. I think, given all the available information that the Pelicans had, the value there, even though Dyson's had a little bit of a breakout, if we scrutinize the offensive numbers that he's putting up in Atlanta, I think, in totality, the value for DeJounte, which has unfortunately the Pelicans have not been able to reap the benefits of because of the injuries, amongst other things. I think that was a solid trade. And that's something that, like, I think that's something Dell would have done. And I've been like, yeah, dude, that was a good move. And I know a lot of people are like, oh, well, are you, you're saying Dell, like, use Dell as an example. It's bad. No, I think Dell had like the right idea on a lot of the buy trades that he
The Boogie trade is a win. The transaction of the Boogie trade itself was a win.
So was the Drew trade.
Period. So was the Drew trade. So
right, the elephant in the room is Gail Benson, says Mike. If I had to guess, she's waiting to sell the team after expansion. For audio only listeners, this is Mike in the comments. I'm reading his comments. Let's talk about Miss B for a second. I think one important bit of information that is perhaps not commonly known to the average fan, or certainly external fans or external viewers, is that the ownership group is a group. And, I would say that Dennis Lauscha and Greg Bensel and Mickey Loomis are part of a trifecta that props up the ownership group under Miss Benson. And those people handle the operations and some of the decision stuff and the business related stuff a lot more than Miss B, and they drive a lot of those financial decisions that Mike is referring to. That that's the elephant. As far as expansion goes, I think he's correct that this team is waiting for an expansion. Check. I don't think it's necessarily to sell the team. It might relate to what they're going to do with the arena. In that space, I think the expansion check is going to be around $300 million, $200 to $300 million. So that's something that they're waiting for. But unfortunately for them, I think a couple other owners are also waiting for that, namely the Portland ownership group. That is one as well, where I think there's a handful of owners out there like, well, as soon as that $300 million hits, we're going to cash out in entirety. The thing with Miss Benson is they have, they've laid out the team in the trust. Both the teams are in the trust, and they've put stipulations in the trust that they have to sell it to someone if they choose to sell it upon Miss B's death. That's going to keep the team in New Orleans. Now, whether that person in turn flips it to a person that will move it from New Orleans is a long, conversation we're so far away from. It's probably not worth having, but that's in the trust. Do I think that they have been obstructive in terms of the Pelicans reaching their potential? I think it's a more nuanced answer than yes or no. Not paying the tax is a level of obstruction. Not enabling your executives to fire people when necessary is a level of obstruction. Would the Pelicans be a contender if those things were flipped? It's really, really tough for me to say. The only argument I could see is like maybe they would be proactively allowed to make a trade for a guy like, when Kevin Durant was available. Like maybe they would be proactively allowed to go get him and figure out the tax later, or Damian Lillard, they could go get him and figure out the tax later. When some of these premier stars that have moved in the past few years, and the Pelicans did have their expansive war chest, maybe they could have been like, screw it, we're gonna just do this. Maybe would that have put them into the contender sphere because of how Zion's been available and how BI's been BI? Tough for me to say.
I feel like there's also a reputational element for the franchise with this too. Like I feel like the consistent ducking of the tax and other things where you're trying to save a buck gets this, like players talk, right? And so I do think that being the case on an ongoing basis, and like, cutting corners where you think it's not a big deal, players might think it is a bigger deal than you do. And so that word of mouth, I think, kind of gets around, and it gives this franchise a reputation that, is not, ideal. And you're already kind of swimming upstream from you're already a small market team, right? And so that doesn't help you. And so I agree with everything you said. I just think that, there's probably something not quite as tangible in this too.
And finally, most owners, when they buy a team, they normally are, gung ho and blowing money out the water, trying to compete and win a title. And the Bensons basically, quote unquote, saved the then Hornets from being sold off. And Tom basically thought, I should be congratulated just for doing that. And before then, it was Shin who was first being cheap with Charlotte to bring him here because they wouldn't get him an arena. And then I think George Shin was the worst of them all because they had
terrible.
They had a conference championship level team and destroyed it because Tyson Chandler got hurt again. The Tyson Chandler that later on in his career won Defensive Player of the Year and won a title. You know what I'm saying? So maybe it's me remembering all those things and now seeing what Gail has done. Basically, this franchise's reputation, it was behind the 8 ball when she got it, and she's trying to swim upstream to a level playing field and will always be viewed as the person who puts the Pelicans on the back burner for the Saints. Go look at the Saints. They're not any much better without Drew Brees and Sean Payton.
But is what's happening on the Saints side also? I don't follow the Saints all that much, right?
Mm-hmm.
It is impossible to miss what is going on if you live in the city of New Orleans and follow the people you do online. It's impossible to miss what's going on. My understanding, as a very disconnected far observer with the Saints side, is things got to an extreme level of bad there. And there was a big resistance to make change, and there had to be a complete over-the-top reaction from the players, and just to an embarrassing level of negativity around that team for there to be a change. Does that not reflect on ownership? Does that not reflect on them? Be like, yeah, Makey, go do what you got to do.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Like you had your star player that basically said that you need to fire the coach, and then they signed him to a contract extension. So it could be the amount of NBA legacy people that hate George is incredible. Yes. Everyone hated that guy, and that's what I remember those times. So I'm not saying Gail Benson is the greatest owner. There are times where I feel as though they should pay the tax, and then I ask myself, is this roster worthy paying the tax? So coming from where we come from to now, it's like she's doing the best that I can't say she's doing the best she can, but she's doing pretty good from what we come from. And I think she has the desire to do better. Just this era just been a poorly dealt hand because the number one guy has always been hurt.
I guess here's where I'm at with it. I think that Tom was a bottom tier owner, not maybe to the level of George Shin, because that's a difficult bar to reach, but I don't think he was far from the Dolans of the world. I don't think he was far from whatever's going on in Chicago right now. I think Tom was a bottom tier owner. I don't think there is enough data on Miss Benson to say that she's moved the ownership group to like, above average or even average levels. I do think there's been real tangible changes in terms of the money they've invested in the team that Tom was not willing to invest in the team. And that starts with investing in David Griffin and him allowing him to invest the money in the folks that he invested money in. Now we can litigate, maybe investing in Aaron Nelson was a bad idea. Maybe doing certain things was not a great idea. That is a separate conversation from the fact that Benson opened up the pocketbook to allow for a lot of changes, a lot. Like I'm talking about millions and millions and millions of dollars more than Dell ever got from Tom. And so that is important. And it's not, it's not nothing. However, I don't think she's done enough that's contributed to like the wins aspect of it. If we can talk about if they've had the opportunity to do it, I do think they did. I do think there were some trades for some of those start level players that we mentioned that they could have swung had they just had the blanket go ahead to do so. So I would say that like if you're to rank all the owners in the league, she hasn't done enough to move out of like the bottom 10 or so. Like I don't know, like I'm not gonna sit here and like make a list of like, is this billionaire better than the other billionaire? Like at some level, all those billionaires are terrible people. However,
Yes.
like I can't say that. Yeah, like they've done their job. That's where I'm at with that.
Yep.
So
all right, go ahead.
Yeah. I was gonna say we've been on here for just over an hour. We're gonna move on to like the last portion of this. Jay, actually, do you want to take us there?
All right. So I was talking about reminiscing from where we was from. Another part that I want to reminisce about was the news coverage of this team. The two guys who brought me on were part of a blog, Hornets 24/7 and Bourbon Street Shots. And the number one reason why they became part of that blog, because the media coverage stunk. Because the people covering the team back in the early 2000s were not good at their jobs. So these two dudes came along and made it fun, made it interesting, brought some smart insight up on this team. And then we got good people covering this, good journalists covering this team. And one of those dudes is Christian Clark. And Christian announced over the weekend that he is leaving this beat. I don't know if he's announced where he's going next.
He did. He said that
he did. Okay.
From the Blue podcast.
Okay, so he is going to go cover the, I believe, Dallas, and the Dallas beat, I believe. Yeah. So
Dallas Mavericks
beat, which is where he's from. For the last 5-6 years, the dude left Jokic to cover this team. Yeah, and he has put out some of the best pieces. The Piano Man is
No.
That
was a good one though.
Karen, come back. You left us at the Piano Man.
Amongst other things that he's written about this team, but that dude loves basketball, man. That dude just loves basketball. He's a good dude who loves basketball. I'm gonna miss the coverage of the team. I'm gonna miss how he approached his job here, and I appreciate everything you did for the Pelicans beat, Christian. And when my service come back, I'm going to tell you that I hope the Mavericks stink. I hope you have the same issues you had when you was over here.
Man,
man, enjoy your time.
I think people really, really don't understand how hard Christian worked on this beat, like the level of work. Like anyone who's tried to write understands the difficulty it comes from producing content day in, day out. That's difficult in and of itself. Then you add the deadlines that come with the paper, right? Because the paper gets put in print. That's the bare bones level of the job. Christian routinely went so far above and beyond that, talking to every single source possible, every single trying to build a relationship with any lead that he could chase down. He did his due diligence if he had a scoop to go check in with other people to verify that, hey, this was the case. And then he brought it to you guys. He wrote on things that literally nobody else on this market was covering. Um, and he knocked it out of the park with those things. Like, obviously, Jeremy was joking about the Piano Man stuff, and that's a story that you guys never would have gotten had it not been for Christian. But there's super, super important stuff about the stadium, about ownership, about the leasing stuff that's going on, about the whole Bally Sports thing. Like, nobody else was covering it the way Christian covered it. And I hope, whoever ends up stepping into those shoes, they certainly have big shoes to fill. I hope, they continue to strive to reach the level of coverage that Christian provided. Definitely going to miss him a lot.
Yeah. The only thing I'll add that are just kind of maybe say a little bit different ways. The fearlessness he had with his reporting. I think the work ethic is documented, well by both of you, and obviously it's been great over the years to see the beat for the Pelicans, the Hornets to the Pelicans, improve so much over time, and Christian has played a huge part in that. But just to some of the articles you were talking about, Schmidt, like there was fearlessness where before you or even in some markets you'll see kind of media bend to make sure they got the ear of the right people in the front office to make sure they stay in their good graces in order to get the scoops, right? Well, that wasn't how Christian went about his day, and so I respect him all the more for it, and it allowed us to get the stories like the ones you're talking about, and so again, can't respect him enough for it, and wish you all the best in back in Dallas, Christian.
Shout out Christian. Jay, you want to take us home?
All right. It says we have 470 subscribers.
Oh no, this is the worst time. This is the worst time for this.
Perfect.
Oh no. Look at it's all, it's frozen. It's completely
frozen again.
All right.
Okay, we're back.
Terrible internet. Thank y'all so much for going on this first trip live. I'm gonna speak for us, three of us. I think we're gonna try to do this again because I had fun with the comments popping up and helping us veer some of these conversation. Yeah. Peace out.
Thanks, everyone.